The COVID-19 pandemic could cause a delay in the calling of general elections in St. Kitts and Nevis, which must be called no later than August this year, which would be 90 days since the first sitting of Parliament. Political analyst Peter Wickham explains.
The fact of the matter is that Parliament doesn't really reach the 5-year anniversary until May. We are only now in March. And in light of the fact that we are facing this pandemic, which the WHO has already identified as a global pandemic, it essentially gives the Timothy Harris administration a legitimate basis on which to say that they will use up that 3-month interim period to prepare for elections, and which means that they can go all the way down to August. Normally, one would not want to do that, but I appreciate that in light of this virus, they may argue that, look, it is wise for us to hold off on the election because it's hard to have an election without people coming into contact with one another. So for all of those reasons, we may very well be facing a long summer.
Mr. Wickham believes that based on polling data he has compiled and the accomplishments of the Team Unity government, the Prime Minister could have called the elections already. He believes his delay, however, could be to gain additional momentum.
I would think that we should have had an election already under normal circumstances. But my point before was that I think the Prime Minister obviously has made a calculation that better times are ahead for him and his party. Maybe there are projects that he wants to conclude. And maybe his expectation is that there's more legal stuff that can help him in terms of the campaign. But I'm fully with you of the view that certainly if the polls are saying that you're winning, it might make a whole lot of sense to go ahead and win it instead of waiting for a situation where you're less certain and your back is against the wall. That's the conventional logic. But in all of these things, it has to be weighed against the possibility that, there may be some big thing on the horizon, and maybe this is the type of thing that he was waiting on. But I certainly agree with you that the polling would have suggested that it would have been wise for him to go forward. Bearing in mind, of course, that in St. Kitts and Nevis, the issue is always one of the overseas vote and the impact that the overseas vote can have. Perhaps the Prime Minister believes himself to need a bit more headway regarding the local vote, or a bit more distance regarding the local vote that can buttress any additional overseas vote that may come in.
Earlier this year, Mr. Wickham revealed from his latest poll that Team Unity was strong on the ground and would win an election based on that support if called now. Another pollster, Bill Johnson, said the Labour Party would have won majority of the seats in tow. Now with COVID-19 in the picture, it is anyone's guess who will win this election. Mr. Wickham believes how the government handles this health crisis will determine how they will fare when elections are called.
I already hear disquiet about the fact that the opposition was not involved in the conversation. We had a social partnership approach here in Barbados in which even the minority opposition, or the opposition that was unelected, was invited to the table. And I thought that was a good approach. I was disappointed that in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis, that was not followed. I don't know whether the opposition was willing to sit at the table with government, but I would like to think that with an issue like this, that would be, something that they do. So if I were to give an assessment thus far of the reaction in terms of preparedness on the ground seems fine. I do feel that this should have been a social partnership approach that would have included the opposition, assuming that they're willing to sit at the table and discuss with government plans and so on. I think that's probably my only disappointment. But other than that, I do feel that the government has not performed badly in terms of being able to say, look, we're prepared. In the final analysis, I don't really know that there's a whole lot that any of us can do to stop the likelihood, or to reduce the likelihood of a person with coronavirus walking into one of the countries.
The opposition has claimed that the Unity government, having passed the 5-year anniversary date of their election in February this year, is basically an expired government. Opposition leader Dr. Denzil Douglas said in a previous comment that the government would be abusing the constitutional provision to call elections in August, as this is only for emergency purposes. Mr. Wickham believes that based on polling data he has compiled and the accomplishments of the Team Unity government, the Prime Minister could have called the elections already. He believes his delay, however, could be to gain additional momentum. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.